Entitled mother doesn't realize I'm her daughter's free Uber. A little bit of a build-up on this one, so hang with me. My mom's co-worker's schedule changed and she was no longer able to drive her daughter to school in the morning. I had just landed an after-school job at the school she went to, so she asked if I could drive her there each day and that she would pay for it. She gave her daughter $20 a day by her own choice to pay me, and my college was across the street and started 20 minutes after the drop-off time, so it was fast, easy money. Well, my mom found out how much I got paid and told her to bump it down, so it went to $10. My mom told her to bump it again, and then it was $5. I would have agreed with this if they were struggling on money, however, Yu's mom makes a lot of money. A lot. Well, after a few weeks, either Yu was stealing my pay or they just stopped caring about paying me, because every now and then she would give me $5, but it ended up being like $5 every 2 weeks. Since this took about 15 minutes extra out of my mornings, I just let it go. After a few more weeks of me doing it for no pay go by, and one day Yu comes to my car with her cousin and says Lo needs a ride to school now. Lo's dad normally drives her, but I guess they wanted the free rides now too. They go to the same school, so nothing changes in my schedule. I agreed, but I'm still not getting paid for this. I didn't have Lo's parents' number, but Yu's mom confirmed with me that this was approved. Eventually, Yu and Lo start calling me at random hours of the day, asking me for rides across town. I mean like rides that took an hour of my time, again for no pay. Yu had a rough childhood. She was an orphan in another country and adopted by my mom's coworker later in life. Shortly after the adoption, her parents separated. I don't know if it was the pity in me that kept giving them free rides or what, but I did it. To top this off, they started coming out last minute for school, which meant I ended up running late from my college parking lot to my classroom to make it in time for my classes, and I asked them to be earlier and they agreed, but nothing changed. This went on for months. Well, as I mentioned, I worked at the school Yu and Lo went to. Every day, Monday to Friday, myself and only one other coworker took every kid kindergarten to 5th grade the moment after the school bell rang. There were 2 of us for over 100 students most days, and most kids had their parents come pick them up by 3:30, and by 4 there were 15 kids left. However, at 4, the leftover preschoolers and junior high students would join our group, usually about 5 from both groups, putting us at 25 students. Yu and Lo were always picked up immediately after school, but not this day. They're 8th graders, and when I see the junior high students come into my classroom, I'm surprised and I greet them, hand them popcorn, and they sit down to watch a movie I had on. About 15 minutes into them being there, Lo comes up to my desk and tells me her mom is here and they're leaving. I inform them that the kids in my program have to be signed out by their parents and her mom needs to come inside, and she nods and sits back with Yu. 2 minutes later, the classroom door slams open, and a lady, the entitled mom, comes stomping up to my desk. This is a good time to remind you I've never met or talked to Lo's parents. This lady begins to berate me, telling me it's ridiculous she had to walk 1 minute to pick them up when they should be old enough to walk themselves. I explained that I could and would get fired if I let any child leave without a parent or approved person signing them out, and she continues to berate me, telling me I'm incompetent and should have brought the sign-out pad with the girls to her car. I explained that my coworker can't be left alone with 20 students, and we weren't even supposed to be alone with 1 student. She scuffs at me and signs me out and tells Yu and Lu to walk out, and they do. Yu and Lu must have told the entitled mother who I was, because not even 2 minutes later I got a text from Lo saying her mom is so sorry and had no idea who I was, and I was annoyed but shrugged it off. I was not going to continue to be their free Uber anymore after what had happened. There were only a few weeks left in the semester, so I figured I would give them a ride to school, but still that's it. The next morning I went to pick them up and Yu gets in the car alone, and she mentioned Lo's dad is driving her to school now. As I'm about to pull away from the shared house, I see Lo and her dad come out to their car, and Lo's dad waves at me with a sheepish look. Yu ended up transferring schools next year, so I stopped driving them both altogether, and every now and then they attempted to text me for free rides to restaurants or friend houses, but honestly, I ghosted them. I don't blame them for Lo's entitled mother's actions, however, I was tired of not getting paid and I didn't feel like fighting for it. Sorry it wasn't more exciting, but it happened back in 2018 and it's still funny to me. If only I could have seen the reaction on the entitled mom's face when she realized she just went full carrot on the girl who gives her child free rides everywhere. I think you were already being way too nice for being a free Uber for absolutely no money. Like, that part's a little bit on you, right? That being said, dude, I love how the Karen complained about having to come sign out her kid from the free daycare program that's there for when she leaves her kids late at school. Bro, I know childcare is like mad expensive. I would definitely not be complaining about having a free babysitter on hand, especially if it's the person who's been giving your kid free rides. You should just be nice in general to the person watching your kids, but if they've been Ubering your kids around, you gotta double down on the niceness. I'm getting quiet now. Lay low when you reach, so I'm wiping down. Making out, Alright, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Today I'm going to be hitting you with another video about the subreddit entitled Parents. These are your guys' favorite Reddit videos by far, so I figured I would bring you guys one that's a little bit longer and, hopefully a little bit more entertaining for all y'all. So if you enjoyed these videos, please be sure to press the like button, and without further ado, let's get into some entitled Parents. Let's go. Entitled Dad wants me to pay rent so he doesn't have to work. For context, my dad lost his job all the way at the start of the pandemic. It was what it was. We stayed afloat thanks to unemployment checks, and I loaned him $1,000 in that time so we could get a new family vehicle. I gave him the money with the condition he would teach me to drive with the car, and he agreed, and we got it. Right around August of 2020, he got hired on by his family to take care of my great-grandmother for a year and change. That ended back in October when she unfortunately passed away, and we were told by him that he had a good amount stored in his savings that would tide us over for a few months. Well, it seems like those savings didn't run that deep when literally a month later he came to me and my brother and asked us to step up and pay the majority of the house bills while he was looking for work. I put up some fight about how it's not my responsibility to prop up the household, but I gave in and helped. We were told that it would only be a couple months, and my sister had to help in the same way at one point when she's home. She corroborated that statement, and she only had to do a couple months of help. That was the end of November. Sometime in January, he jumped into a small group selling internet plans to people for commission. And by commission, I mean only commission. It's like $30 per sale he makes, but just to keep him in the project, he's given $100 a week for his time. To put that in perspective, if he has a bad month of sales, his monthly income would be $400. I think nothing of this, it's just the middle job, and I've been sending him applications to places in town for his level of experience for about 2 months prior to that. I did it as a courtesy, trying to help him find things that were available, so I figured he was going to find something soon. But based on a heated discussion we had this past weekend, I have a feeling he's not seeking higher employment. In this discussion, he laid out the monthly expenses and asked our family group chat who can cover what. I asked him what he was contributing, and it got ignored. I informed that I'm trying to get myself a car, so I need to hang back on contributions, and he said that I can't do that. I have to make the usual $500 rent payment. For reference, I only make $500 per paycheck and have bills of my own that need to be covered. I then sent another group of applications with the intent of helping him find something long-term, and he told me that since he has to play chauffeur for the house, which consists of taking my brother and I to work, since he's neither taught either of us how to drive and there aren't instructors in our area, as well as take my mom shopping and our long-term house guest to the doctor's appointments, he doesn't have the time to fit a 40-hour work week into the mix. Now I'm understandably upset about this statement and tell him this arrangement can't go on like this, and tell him maybe he should teach me to drive like he's supposed to have been, and I can take care of some of the driving. He replies it would be easier if I have my own car, and I'm dumbfounded that he glossed over my reasoning for wanting to get off the bills. I reiterated that in that case I should focus on the car, and he followed up saying the bills need to be paid, and I told him he should step up and get a better job. To which he started from the beginning about having to drive everyone around, and I ended the conversation there because we had come full circle and it wasn't worth my time, and decided to be non-committal about the bills. Well, come earlier today, and the two of us are running errands for my mom, and on the way to the store, he asked me again about rent, and I said I need to save for a car, and then I'm going to be going to a used dealership in my month after I've got my savings up to $2,000. He gets upset and tells me we're behind on our rent payment by a day because I'm thinking for myself, and corners me into paying up, and I'm holding firm. And when we get back, my mom pleads with me to do it so we can get off my back, and I do it once more. I'm ranting to my mom about the whole ordeal, and she tells me that with all the job applications I've sent and given him, he hasn't even bothered to try. He's relying on me and my brother as a crutch so he doesn't get the motivation to work higher than he is now. So I declared to her I'm actually going to be dropping the bills and focusing on the car, and that my dad needs to understand I'm not going to be around forever to pay the bills for him. Meanwhile, she's been arguing with him over the same thing in the background, and apparently he's getting my mom to try to find employment to help out as well, which isn't fair to her. Sorry to come here and rant, but his lack of willingness to even try has got on my last nerve, and he wonders why I want to move out. I love how he's like telling everyone that they need to work more hours in order to pay the rent that they're behind on, but meanwhile his reasoning for not working is I have to drive people places. Like, hey bro, at least be picking up an Uber Eats order on the way back, I just don't understand how you could ever tell your kid that it's like their responsibility to take care of a majority of the rent. Obviously situations happen, sometimes kids gotta help their family, but being like, hey, I'm not gonna have a job and you're gonna do all the work, okay? Like, Like, how do you do that to somebody, dude, without feeling insanely guilty? My mother-in-law is announcing my pregnancy before we do. A few months ago, my wife and I discovered that she's pregnant. We'd been trying for a while, and we were super excited to start telling people, but because of a few miscarriages in the family, we wanted to wait till after the first trimester. Out of too much excitement, we finally decided to tell our parents and siblings, and that was it. And we weren't worried about anyone spreading the word without permission. That is, besides my mother-in-law. Because of this, we made it very clear that we do not want her to tell anyone until we start making it public, and she said she understood and would not tell anyone. Fast forward only a week later, and we got a call from her, and she's with her mother, my wife's grandmother, and basically forces us to tell her. Annoyed and frustrated, we go along with it to avoid an awkward moment. Plus, it's my wife's grandma, and we aren't against telling her, we just wanted to wait a little bit later. Then there's today. While in class, I get a text from my wife to tell me that she was just congratulated on the pregnancy from one of her mother's friends, and that pissed us both off. I've never met someone so selfish and incapable of keeping a secret. Sorry for the longish post, but I needed to rant and don't want to let my wife know how upset I am at her mom. Well, this did get a little bit popular on Reddit, so I don't know if she saw it or not. That being said, this does sound awful, dude. Nothing's worse than being like, hey, can you keep this on the down low? The person's saying yes, and then them turning around and telling literally everybody. Like, you know, if you would have been honest about not being able to keep a secret, I just wouldn't have told you. But nope, now you had to go flap your gums everywhere, and everybody knows all my business. Thank you so incredibly much. Entitled parent tried to guilt trip my friend and I into buying his 4 kids food because he didn't want to wait in line. My friend and I were in a big mall that is in a city halfway between where we both live. When we were finished shopping, my friend wanted a pretzel from the popular pretzel lady before we left, and when we got there, the line was huge. It went down the length of the counter of the kiosk, around the corner, past one store, and even further. We got in line when it was just past the other store, and it took less than 10 minutes to get to the register. As my friend is ordering her food, a man that was in his late 30s came up to us and asked us if we ordered his kids some food. He even tried to give us 20 and said we could keep the change. We weren't sure what to do since neither one of us had been in this situation before, and we both contemplated on doing so, and even I moved my hands towards the money once or twice. It was my friend that said she just paid and didn't feel comfortable ordering again, and he looked at me and asked if I'd do it. I told him I wasn't planning on buying anything and stepped out of line. He tried one more time since my friend was still at the register and there was only one worker, so they handled it one at a time. I looked back at the line, which was around the corner, and the lady behind us who had kids said, "Dude, we had to wait." He got all huffy and yelled, "Yeah, but I don't want to wait, I have 4 kids." "Sorry," I said. He grabbed his kid and angrily walked off, saying something about how we're rude or jerks for not helping him out, and the lady behind us said good job, and my friend said I was awesome. She's working on standing up for herself and was just caught off guard. I don't think anyone else noticed, but it did feel good to put him in his place, even if it took me a second to get my head together. Nothing is worse than cutting in line, man. Like, listen, nobody likes waiting in line. I think it's something we can all agree sucks. That being said, the only thing people hate more than waiting in lines is people that think they can cut the line that they just waited in. Imagine you were just standing there for 15 minutes awaiting your pretzel. This dude walks up, hands a 20 to the person in the front of the line, and is like, sweet, sweet, thanks. You wouldn't feel the slightest tinge of hatred towards that person for 45 seconds, because I feel like I would, you know. I don't think it'd make me upset by the time I got to the car, but yeah, I'd probably be like, that guy definitely sucked. Entitled parent wanted me to give her son some free dice. I'm a dungeon master who also works in a game shop, and we sell all kinds of things like dice, figurines, paint, board games, and more. But the hot cake of all was a new pair of dice we had just gotten in. The dice in specific were custom handmade, and the set we got we called the lava dice because of the color that these were in the set. It was made for a convention that was coming up, so we weren't going to sell it just yet, even though we had tons of offers from everyone who plays D&D. But my favorite offer was from this 36-year-old man who came in looking for dice for his new game of D&D. I took him around and showed him what we had to offer, and he saw the box of dice. He asked what it was, and I of course told him it was dice for an upcoming convention that he could get if he attended, but no, he grabbed up a set from a smaller box aside. This box had a different stamp for the high number, that was WarCon, and looking at it and the color, he seemed to instantly fall in love, but I had to tell them that they weren't for sale. The others you could order online or purchase while at the convention if you like, and if you were attending the convention, you can give him the set of dice back to him when the convention happened. Well, I don't really think I want to go to the convention. Oh, so I can have it ordered online, I guess, if you want. No, I don't want to pay. Excuse me? Yeah, I don't want to pay for these. Sir, these are custom handmade products. If you want them, you have to pay. Otherwise, please put them up front so the bag can be changed and disinfected. No, but I want them. Yeah, so you have to pay. He eventually put the dice down, and because he had touched them and ran them all over his hands, they had to be cleaned, and walked to the front with nothing but a dice board, a custom board so dice won't roll off the table. I had to yell at him to be rang up. I ring him up and he pays and he leaves, but a couple minutes later, this woman in her 60s walks in with him following behind, and she doesn't greet me as I say hello. Instead, she storms to the back, picks up the dice from the table where I had to rebag them, and started to walk out of the store. And I screamed at her, telling her she can't leave without paying, and when I grab her arm, she started screaming I'm hurting her. I let go because there were customers in the shop and I was getting weird looks, and she grabbed the phone from behind the counter and called the police. When they arrived, she told them that I tried to assault her after she bought the dice for her son, but luckily the other customers in the store saw the teenager being harassed and about to be arrested, and a few people stepped in to defend me. I gave the boss a call and he came down while we were checking cameras. The moment it showed her taking the dice without leaving, and suddenly she was feeling faint, and we wound up having 2 police officers, an ambulance, and several onlookers in the store while she was checked and dragged out in handcuffs. I got the day off, but the next day I spent rebagging all the dice and putting them in the attic so no one would act like that again, and funnily enough, the man showed up with his dice board cut in half, saying it was broken when he bought it. They don't come in boxes, they come in a clear bag, and demanded a refund. Thankfully, our store rule states no refunds are to be made once a non-Bucks product leaves the store, aka if you saw it before it, you buy it once you keep it. You keep it once you buy it, sorry. I just want to know how many times that approach has worked for that dude for him to be flabbergasted that you said no. Like, how many times has he walked in somewhere and been like, I really want this, and they've been like, well, you have to pay, and he says, no, I don't, and they're just like, all right, man, yeah, okay, well, then just take it. Like, clearly the shock that him and his mom had at the fact that they couldn't steal anything makes me think that they do this on the regular and just hope that nobody calls them out for it, you know? What do you mean I can't just take things? I thought this was America, home of the free. And it's like, yeah, home of the free doesn't mean that the objects are free, though, you know? Like, you have the freedom to not be an idiot and steal stuff if you want. Entitled parents demand their son get more playing time despite his effort or talent. So I'm a lacrosse coach going into his 5th season as head coach. I've done really well, just not in those 4 previous seasons. I've won 2 championships the other 2 seasons and then lost the championship game. This is youth sports for the town where I coach in 8th grade. I'm 28, and this past season I had a group of parents that got really mad at me and almost made me lose my passion for coaching. We were nearing the end of the season with only about a week left when I get an email from a parent saying how I needed to play their son more because he won all these awards in previous camps and clinics he participated in, and I responded very politely by asking them if they would like to speak with me over the phone when I get off work today, and they responded with K. I called them when I'm on my way home and am immediately met with hostility and yelled at for not playing their son, and their son is more talented than player X or player Y, and to me this is inappropriate to be bringing other players into the conversation. I had about 27 players on the team, and with it being a youth team by the town we are told to try and get kids around the same playing time each game. Myself and the other coaches have a system into making sure each kid gets around the same time, and if I ever mess up during a game, and it has happened, I own up and apologize. However, I know that this kid has been playing his fair share of the game, if not slightly more. I mentioned this to both of them, that I want to develop the young men for the high school level, and they're saying, well, you're not a high school level coach, so you have to do what we say. They then start bringing up all the awards again, and I explain that he may have done these great things in the clinic, that he does not see, and I do not see a level of understanding of our offensive sets and plays, and he does not ask about the plays, which would make him a liability, and I still play him a fair amount. The kid is good, but he's quiet, and I've said time and time again to the entire team, if you have questions, please ask. And I will never get mad at asking a question, but during a game, you need to know what to do. His parents then reluctantly agreed with what I had said and hung up. Turns out they did not let it end there. They then contacted the head of our program and demanded I be immediately relieved of my duties and not be allowed to coach. The head of our program came up to me and asked me what happened, and I explained, and he stood behind me because of my record of not doing anything like that, and he knows that I'm truly here for the kids. I've never gotten a complaint like this in my first 3 seasons, and in my 5th season starts in a couple days, and our pay amount has been restructured to have to deal with the feedback from parents, so I'm nervous I'm going to end up losing hard-earned money that I deserve due to some bad sports. sports. I know sports parents are like always crazy about, you need to play my kid more, but there's something very funny about it being a lacrosse player that's parents are like acting super entitled, demanding that you have to play their son. I just feel like that sport has a huge like concentration of very entitled people in it. Not all of them, One of my best friends played lacrosse. He was cool. I'm just saying, I feel like if you're going to be a lacrosse coach, you just have to accept the fact that you're going to be dealing with a lot of parents that are going to be massive pains in the butt. My first retail mega Karen. I work a retail job over here in Australia and have had a few encounters with a few low-key Karens here and there, but never anything super entitled until my shift the other day. The shift was already bringing out some annoyed customers because we had already completely sold out of plastic bags and people repeating the same, how am I supposed to carry all this dialogue like a broken Oblivion NPC? Nothing that we couldn't really handle. That was until Mega Karen got into the self-checkouts with her 2 kids who were too young to understand the situation. She first calls us over about the pricing discrepancy on the labels with 2 pairs of pants, and the pants were the exact same, but one had a label that said $2 and one had a label that says $8. We say the best that we can do is scan it and sell it to you for the price it comes up as, and wouldn't you know it, they were $8, and she gets upset and says, how come you have a label on it for $2 and you're not going to sell it to me for that? My social anxiety starts playing up and I start having mental blanks, but to make sure that my customer service face is on, my absolute saint of a coworker came up to tell the Karen sometimes the label maker can have an error that causes pricing discrepancies. Karen accepts the explanation, albeit in a very grumpy manner, and huffs and says, fine, I don't want them anymore, and shoves them into my hands, and I apologize and clear the items from self-checkout and then go to the clear-ups people that were having on other machines. Not even a minute after she's finished, she purchases, she comes up to us with another pricing discrepancy, this time on a pre-printed label on the packaging itself that she had paid an extra $1 for. She yells, why has this come out as $7 instead of $6? I can understand the other label being wrong, but this is ridiculous. It's your fault this time. With my customer service face still on, holding back to the urge to say, if you had just told us about this very clear pricing error before you finished your purchase, we could have fixed it. The best I could say is, I'm sorry we don't do refunds at checkouts. We'd be more than happy to refund the $1 at the service desk in our store. This obviously angers her more and she yells, why on earth would I go back into the store I just spent an hour in for $1? You should be able to fix it. It's your fault this time. My coworker repeats the same as me, that if she really wants it, she can go get the $1 back, but otherwise there's nothing we could do about it. The kids in this situation are just kind of standing next to her awkwardly before Karen finally drags her kids off with her, rambling in the process. When she's finally gone, me and my coworker have a laugh over the encounter, and I'll tell you what, bonding with your coworkers over a Karen encounter is one of the most redeeming things about working in retail. Honestly, I feel like this Karen was stewing over the $2 jeans for so long that she went out to the car and just double-checked everything. She was really hoping to find something that was mislabeled so that way you guys would get in trouble. That's what this reads as to me. Look it, this is your fault. She just kept saying this is your fault. It's like, who cares? It's just a label mismatch. It's not really that big of a deal. The only explanation is that she was embarrassed about the first time that she had to get something fixed and got mad about it being mislabeled, so she wanted to stick it to the man and make it your fault somehow. My mother-in-law locked me out of my own house for 3 days in a row. My mother-in-law was evicted from her house and all of her other children have refused to take her in. My wife and I were nice enough to let her stay in our apartment till she got her housing figured out, and this process was supposed to take 2 weeks, but it suddenly turned into 3 months. She hasn't helped around the house, she started to eat our food and she didn't pay for it, and turned my living room into her bedroom where she nods out and watches TV all day and night. Last week, my wife and I called her out for milking this entire situation, and now she's starting to barricade me from the house every time I come home from work, as well as hiding my work shoes and stealing my clothes. We tried to kick her out, but she's refusing to leave and calling us jerks even though we took her in. I'm sick of this crap that the 60-year-old woman is playing when we were nice enough to let her stay with us while she figures things out. She's a sociopath, and now I understand why the other siblings don't want her in their homes. Imagine someone letting you live with them rent-free, right? They're like, of course, you don't even have to pay rent. You come, take as long as you need to get situated, and then you just start hiding their clothes from them when they start asking you to move out, Hey, you ever thinking about helping with rent? It's like, hey, you ever thought about where your shoes are? You should worry about that, okay? Because they're gone. I hid them. They're in Jupiter now, buddy, all right? Maybe you should worry about that instead of when I'm moving. Mind your business. They're like, I'm trying, but you keep barricading me out of my house. Entitled mother tries taking my necklace and cane and gets kicked out of the doctor's office. Since last year, I've been sick. At first, we thought I'd need surgery, however, the doctor wanted to check something out first and sent me to another doctor. After a couple months of testing, this was the last one needed, but I had also messed up my leg during this time and it made it hard to walk on my own, so my doctor suggested a cane, which I bought. Another thing about me is, even though I'm an adult, I have extreme baby face syndrome. People think I'm an 8th grader when I'm a freshman in college, and my height of 5 feet doesn't help that either. But with some context, let's get to the story. I'm sitting in the doctor's office waiting for me to get called back. The doctor's office was absolutely packed, so it took a while for me to get back there, and after 5 minutes of waiting, a 7-year-old boy and his mom walked in to check in. They both sat down in front of me, and I didn't think anything of it, and I moved my cane forward in order to avoid them tripping at it and look at the TV as I wait. After a couple minutes, I heard a small voice speak. "Excuse me?" I looked down from the TV and saw the little boy across from me looking at me. "Hey, how can I help you?" "How come you have a cane?" The mother looks up from her phone and then looks at me and then him. Don't ask people those questions. "Oh, it's okay. I don't mind people asking. I had an injury and the cane helps me walk." "Well, does it hurt when you walk?" "Sometimes, but the cane helps." I know kids tend to be naturally curious, so I didn't take the little boy's comment as rude. After we asked that, we started talking about how our days were going, our age, and eventually got talking about birds. This kid was an absolute encyclopedia about birds and told me a lot of facts about them. One of my favorites he told me is that a toucan's skin is actually translucent. He noticed my necklace, which was a metal raven, and said, "Wow, I like your necklace. Is it a raven or crow skull?" "It's a raven skull. You know a lot about birds. That's really awesome." "Yeah, I really like..." His mom suddenly cut him off. "Excuse me?" I looked to her and she had this look of pure hatred and disgust. "Yeah, is there something wrong?" "Why are you wearing a skull around your neck? That's kind of inappropriate, don't you think?" "Not really, it's just a metal raven skull, nothing inappropriate about it." "It's kind of satanic, isn't it?" "What?" Her saying that literally blew me out of the water. In what world is wearing something like a metal bird skull satanic? "Ma'am, it's just a necklace. It's nice and I liked it, so I bought it." "Well, you really need to take that off. You're gonna corrupt my son. We're Christians." I looked over at the kid and he seemed as dumbfounded as I was. "Mom, it's just but she cut him off. "Be quiet. You need to take that off right now and give it to me. Also, you look too young to be using a cane. You just want attention." Me taking none of her crap. "I'm not giving you my necklace or my cane. And if anything, you're the one wanting attention and ignorant for thinking that just because my necklace has a bird skull on it, it's satanic. Also, you think young people can't have a cane because they're young? Young people use things like canes and walkers all the time. How dare you talk back to me?" At this point, she got up and tried to grab my cane and necklace, and I was ready to push her back, but the security guard who was coming inside stepped between us. "Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to sit down and leave this person alone." "What? No, they're satanic. I'm trying to free them from Satan." "Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave now. This kind of behavior isn't tolerated here." "But my son has an appointment. I can't leave him here." "Can you call his father? If not, you'll have to reschedule." "My dad's in the car." At that point, the security guard escorted her out of there and the dad came in to watch his son. His dad apologized profusely for his wife's behavior and said she's a little eccentric. After 10 more minutes, I was called back and said goodbye, and after my appointment, they were both gone and I went on my way. Nothing says Karen like still satanic panicking in 2022. Like the 80s called, they want their outrage back, you know? I just feel like it's a big stretch to see a necklace on and just assume anything about a person unless it says something about them. You know, unless they're wearing a necklace that's like, "Hey, I'm diabetic." I feel like it's bizarre to see something and assume anything about it. Like not once would I ever see like a metal raven necklace and just be like, "This guy's a Satanist," you know? Hey, that seems like jumping to conclusions a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. Entitled Mom Wants Our Upgraded Seats for Free. This happened a few years ago, pre-pandemic, when flying overseas from the US to Europe. My girlfriend and I were taking a trip to visit a few places in Europe for vacation. This was her first time overseas, and it was the first time she'd ever flown on a long-haul flight of more than 3 to 4 hours. In the lead up to the trip, we decided to upgrade our seats from economy to whatever the premium economy variant was for the airline. Seeing as it was my girlfriend's first time on a long flight, I figured it was worth it for the extra extra room and perks, and in total we paid $150 for the both of us to upgrade. We boarded the flight and got settled into our seats, which were in the last row of premium economy section on the right side of the plane. There's no noticeable division or indicators between the section other than a small plaque above our row that said premium economy or whatever, and my girlfriend took the window seat and I sat in the aisle. This entitled mom and her son then board and are seated several rows behind us, but in the middle of the row aircraft, 2-4-2 seating. Her son has his nose buried in his switch, as you'd expect a kid his age to do, as they barely get to their seats when the mom comes up to our row and stares at us with no greeting. She's standing in the aisle as other passengers are trying to get around her to get to their seats. Can you swap seats with my son and I? He likes having a window seat and we don't have one. My girlfriend and I look back where their son is sitting and then at each other, and I try to politely decline her request. Unfortunately, no ma'am. We paid to upgrade these seats, so we'd like to keep our assigned seats for this flight. She kept staring at us for a couple seconds and more people tried to shuffle around her as she stood there. Well, my son's not a great flyer and he does better when he sits next to the window. Sorry, but like I said, we paid more money to sit here in premium economy. We're in the last row, so perhaps there's someone else in the rows behind us who will be willing to swap seats. At this point, a flight attendant notices that this entitled mom is holding up the boarding line and comes over to tell her to take a seat. She goes back to her row and my girlfriend and I thinks the end of that exchange and go back to getting settled. After boarding completes, the entitled mom and her son immediately stand up and walk to our row, standing right in front of us with their stuff in hand, and the kid's face is buried in his switch. Can we swap seats now? Ma'am, I already said that we're not willing to swap seats. As I said, we'd paid more to sit here, so we're keeping these seats. There was an awkward, infinitely long pause. That's just really selfish of you. My son isn't the best flyer and he likes to have a window to look out of. It's not a big deal for you to take our seats so he can have the window. At this point, I should mention it's an overnight flight, so there's not going to be anything to look at except for darkness for a majority of it. I'm not going to argue with you, ma'am. I don't think it's selfish to want to sit in the seats that I paid for. I'm sorry that you don't have a window seat for your son, but that doesn't mean you're entitled to my seats that I paid an upgraded fee for. She continues to stand there silently for a few seconds as if we'd give in eventually and move in if she didn't leave. I'm guessing you don't have kids if you act like this. Ma'am, I don't know what to say to you at this point. If it's that big of a deal for your son to get a window seat, then you should have done so in advance. Did you try asking anyone else if they're willing to swap? Well, no one back there is traveling together, so they aren't going to want to swap. I turned around and saw an older couple a row behind us, a pair of coworkers in another row that were watching a video and one headphones and laughing, and a middle-aged woman alone in an aisle with the window seat. She then started to open up the overhead bins and put her stuff in there. Ma'am, we're not swapping seats with you. I think you're just trying to guilt us into giving up our seats so you can sit in premium economy. If a window seat was that important, you would have moved on and asked other people behind us once we told you we weren't willing to move. You just want us to give you a free upgrade. She becomes furious at this point and continues to call us selfish and how what I said wasn't true, and then she then starts to bend over and grab my stuff like she's going to evict us from the row. Lady, don't touch my stuff and leave us alone. Thankfully, the flight attendant came up and asked what the problem is. She tried to go on a rant that I'm denying her kid a window seat and being selfish and rude to her and her son, and when she was done ranting, I explained the actual situation. Ma'am, they aren't obligated to swap seats with you. They said no and you need to take your seats now. Please go back to your row. She escorted them back to their seats as she huffed and puffed, and then she spent the rest of the flight glaring at us from the aisle seat. When the plane finally landed, she rushed to the front of the aircraft ahead of everyone and gave me a solid bump as she passed by with her bag, which definitely wasn't an accident. Her kid was fine for the whole flight too. Anytime we saw him, he was either asleep or was heads down playing a Switch. She was 100% trying to milk you for the free upgrade, dude. That kid didn't care if he sat in the window seat or not. If he had a Switch, he was conked out gaming for the next 14 hours. He probably didn't even realize they were going to Europe until they landed, you know? It's nuts she started moving your stuff, dude. I feel like that's the line. You can come ask me to switch my seats. If I say no, whatever. You're allowed to be mad. I guess that's your right. To start moving my stuff though, dude, I'm surprised they didn't end up kicking her off the airplane. I've heard so many reports about how, airline passengers sucking is up 900%. Being a flight attendant does not seem like the most fun job in the world right now. I'm going to give them credit for that. Anyways, guys, though, I think that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I would really appreciate you taking a second to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. And of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on notifications. If you really want to help me out, I will put a link to the intro song down below, along with a link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast. Or, of course, you could use code Scrubby at the G Fuel checkout. Great way to get a discount on G Fuel. Two more things I gotta plug. I do do post some of my content on Spotify, so if you want to listen offline without gameplay, whatever floats your boat, the link in the top of the description will take you to that. Or, of course, you can go ahead and get yourself some of the coolest merch to ever exist. That link's also going to be in the description, and you can check that out if you want to get the coolest merch to ever exist, like I said. And yeah, on that note, guys, I think that'll do it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I will see each and every single one of you guys next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.